Satellite television company Dish Network has been experiencing outages for the past week or so.
I work for Dish Network. For some reason, I can't access any of my portals or any of my accounts. So I'm like, that's weird. I call retailer services, which is a corporate line, for retailers to get help with, and the number says it doesn't exist anymore. Odd. So I Google Dish. It says their website doesn't exist anymore. So I'm like, oh, we're really having some technical difficulties. Well, it's been a week and nothing's fixed. We're not told anything. We were told, we're working on it last Wednesday. We're not getting paid now because we can't. Everything's down.
The first hint that there was a problem became public on the 23rd during Dish Network's earnings call, where they mentioned at the beginning of it that there were some internal problems that they were having with their telephony systems.
Thanks, Tim. Before we open it up for questions, just a quick update. This morning we experienced an internal outage that's continuing to affect our internal servers and IT telephony. Our Dish and Sling services and our wireless and data networks continue to operate normally and are up and running. However, some of our internal communications, customer care functions, internet sites were affected and are currently down.
They got hit with a ransomware attack. They finally updated their website with some details about the situation. So this is what happened in Dish's own words. But there is some additional information that was alleged by sources to Bleeping Computer about the incident. So they allege here in their article that the attack targeted Dish Network's VMware ESXi servers, and that someone told them the ransomware group Black Basta was responsible for the attack. Now, Black Basta is a group that's been around since at least April of 2022, and they run a ransomware as a service operation, which basically means that people can go onto the dark web and hire these guys from their official website, pay them some Bitcoin or Monero, and then give them some details about a business that they want to get hacked. And like many other ransomware gangs, Black Basta also utilizes the double extortion method when they hack somebody to try to get payment out of the victims. And scammers can get access to customer records and billing information. They could easily use that to impersonate a Dish Network employee, maybe someone from collections or something like that. Now, I haven't seen anything on Black Basta's Onion site saying that they actually had hacked Dish Network or Boost Mobile, but I will say this: if it turns out that this ransomware gang or any other one did hack Dish Network and they actually end up publishing a whole lot of details about how they were able to do it before Dish Network, then that's going to make Dish look really bad.
In late 2019, the World Economic Forum, or WEF, co-hosted a global pandemic simulation known as Event 201 with the Johns Hopkins and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. A few months later, an actual pandemic began. In mid-2020, the WEF co-hosted a global cyber attack simulation with Sberbank, Russia's largest bank. Given the aftermath of Event 201, this has led to speculation that a cyber attack is around the corner. First up, Cyber Polygon is an annual cybersecurity event hosted by Bizone, a cybersecurity subsidiary of Sberbank. The first Cyber Polygon event took place in 2019, and it included simulations for DDoS, web application, and ransomware attacks. Unfortunately, the footage of Cyber Polygon 2019 has been removed from YouTube. Fortunately, it's still possible to download a PDF summary of the event. The summary reveals that there were a limited number of participants, with the only notable one being IBM. The WEF was not yet involved. That said, the WEF's cybersecurity initiatives predate Cyber Polygon by more than a year. The WEF announced the Global Center for Cybersecurity at its annual Davos conference in January 2018. Now, at some point in 2019 or 2020, the WEF partnered with Sberbank to organize Cyber Polygon 2020. Not surprisingly, Cyber Polygon 2020 was much larger than the 2019 edition. Over 120 organizations from 29 countries were involved, and the online event had over 5 million viewers from 57 countries. The website for Cyber Polygon 2020 explains that many of these 120 organizations chose to remain anonymous, but it reveals that lots of big names were involved. Besides Deutsche Bank and Ernst & Young, ICANN is noted as being one of the key partners. ICANN provides global internet infrastructure. Now, whereas the focus of Cyber Polygon 2019 was DDoS, web application, and ransomware attacks, the focus of Cyber Polygon 2020 was a so-called digital pandemic. This digital pandemic would affect everything from financial infrastructure to healthcare and would have a global impact. Now, the full Cyber Polygon 2020 stream is still available on Bizone's YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to the full stream in the description, but I will caution that it's almost 5 hours long. I'll also leave a link to an article from Unlimited Hangout, which provides a detailed background on some of the speakers. So, Cyber Polygon 2020 began with opening remarks from Sberbank CEO Hermann Greff. Hermann explained that the speakers will be discussing, quote, the next pressing issue after the pandemic, which is, of course, a global cyber attack. He revealed that Interpol is also a key partner of Cyber Polygon. Hermann also revealed that WEF founder and chairman Klaus Schwab is personally involved with Cyber Polygon. For context, the WEF is an organization consisting of the world's most powerful individuals and institutions which come together each year to basically decide the future of the world without our input. Now, the first speaker was none other than Mikhail Mishustin, the Prime Minister of Russia, the second most powerful person in the country after President Vladimir Putin. Mikhail revealed that the post-pandemic recovery will focus on digitization, a process that was accelerated by pandemic restrictions. The second speaker was none other than Klaus. He revealed that he'd been working closely with Hermann, who you'll hopefully recall is the CEO of Sberbank. Klaus also said that he was pleased to have recently met with Putin, a meeting which apparently took place in St. Petersburg in November 2019. On that note, Putin is a so-called young global leader of the WEF. Young global leaders tend to become leaders of countries. Although the WEF removed Putin's profile from its website after Russia invaded Ukraine, the association has led to speculation that the war is being used as a pretext for a cyber attack. In any case, Klaus went on to explain that they need a, quote, great reset to bring everything together, aka to centralize control. He said that all WEF stakeholders must be mobilized, that everything must be digitized, and that the cyber attack will make the pandemic look like a small disturbance by comparison. Once Klaus was done, the mic was handed to Alexander Tushkanov, the host of the event. Alexander explained that a cyber attack simulation will be taking place in real time at the Sberbank headquarters during the event, with Bizone employees being hackers and participants being the cyber defenders. Alexander then said that it's been, quote, many years since the Fourth Industrial Revolution was announced by the WEF. He said that the WEF's initiative has resulted in two groups, those who support it and those who oppose it. He asked whether trust or fear will be the motivator for future cooperation. If that wasn't crazy enough, Alexander went as far as to ask whether it will take another crisis to unite the world once the pandemic is over. If you watched our video about how to survive the Great Reset, you'll know that the WEF seems to be keen to create crises for this exact purpose, centralized control. This ties into what was said by the third speaker, who was none other than Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the UK and a frequent contributor to the WEF's global agenda. He said that digitization will continue after the pandemic is over and that rolling out digital ID is the key to successful digitization. Tony went on to complain that governments weren't doing enough to crack down on privacy-preserving technologies and then warned that a, quote, globally impactful scandal is inevitable soon. He also said that the lack of cooperation in the pandemic response makes him concerned that digitization will fail. As I mentioned in that video about how to survive the Great Reset, you'll know that Klaus saw the pandemic as an opportunity to test the Great Reset philosophy. Klaus acknowledged that the WEF's top-down approach failed, which is why they're now focusing on young global leaders for a bottom-up approach. Not very subtle. Speculation aside, the fifth and sixth speakers were Sebastian Tolstoy, head of Ericsson's Russian operations, and Alexei Kornia, CEO of MTS, Russia's largest telecom company. The pair talked about the rollout of 5G and how its purpose is primarily for the operation of smart cities, not for civilian use. The seventh and eighth speakers were Nick Gowing, a former BBC News journalist, and Vladimir Posner, a Russian journalist. Naturally, the pair talked about if fake news is the real digital pandemic. Nick began by slamming then US President Donald Trump for calling the mainstream media fake news. Vladimir continued by questioning whether it's a good thing that people have more access to information in the modern day, and said that journalists used to be soldiers under the Soviet Union. Funnily enough, there was lots of disagreement, with Vladimir saying he wasn't enjoying the conversation. It seems Vladimir won the argument, though, because governments around the world are in the process of passing online censorship laws, some of which will go into force in the next few months. The 16th speaker was Craig Jones, who also works at Interpol, specifically as the organisation's cybercrime director. Craig's answers weren't nearly as revealing as the questions from Alexander, who asked about cyber attacks being executed in waves across multiple countries. Oddly specific.